Hello, and welcome to another midweek episode of That Made Your List. I've been a little bit poor on putting these out the past couple of weeks because I've been trying to figure out how exactly I want to get the format of these midweek ones done, and I've settled upon still going to keep the top 5 lists that I've been working through previously, but instead of asking you, the listener, what to do, because to be honest I wasn't always getting any answers back and so on and so forth, I've decided to start at 1980 and do my top 5 films of that year, and then next week I do 81 and 82, 83 and so on and so forth. Should give me enough time to work my way all the way up to modern day. So that's what we're going to do, starting this week with my top 5 films of 1980. This is not as easy as it sounds. There's some pretty decent films in amongst here. The top one probably won't surprise too many people, but there's some really good films that have not made the list. Really good films may be an exaggeration. Flash Gordon, it's not on my top 5. Really enjoy it, it's not there. Elephant Man didn't make it. Stir Crazy didn't make it. The second highest grossing film of the year, 9 to 5, funnily enough, it did make my list. I've cut it down to 2 honourable mentions and then on to my top 5. Some people's coming out on here that mentioned on the Facebook post on there. My wife's favourite one was Fame. Yeah, I don't particularly like it. Okay, so we'll crack on. We'll crack on to the straight on to the honourable mentions. My first honourable mention is The Blues Brothers. Obviously tells the story of Jake and Elwood Blues. Jake just gets out of prison, returns to their Catholic boarding school to find out that they need to raise, or the boarding school needs to raise $5,000 in 11 days, else it's going to be closed down. So Jake and Elwood go out to reform their old band and try and raise the money in a big gig. Crossing the country, they're pursued by the police. They upset some rednecks in the deep south. Neo-Nazis are chasing after them, and she's only credited as the mysterious woman, but Carrie Fisher turns up through this and is trying to get them. Along the way, they stumble into obviously modern day movie. The whole the main cast is actual musicians rather than actors, and to be honest sometimes it shows, but they go in to pick up one of the members of the band, and Aretha Franklin's the girlfriend, and cue all of a sudden the song Think, sang by Aretha Franklin, and here's the song. They come across Ray Charles, Cab Calloway and so on and so forth. It's just, the soundtrack alone for me makes it a minimum of an honourable mention. The final car chase through Chicago utterly wrecks the whole town near us, damn it, or the whole city near us, damn it. And for me, it's an iconic song, the song of Everybody Needs Somebody. It nails its spot as an honourable mention. So there's there. My other honourable mention is the original Friday the 13th. Now this is such an iconic slasher that even 38 years on from it made it still in the public consciousness. Obviously it was remade, almost a shot-for-shot remake, pretty much a couple of years. Rob Zombie, I think, was that Halloween? I think Rob Zombie did Halloween. Anyway, yeah, it's still in the public consciousness. Obviously it tells the story of a bunch of camp counsellors trying to set up a summer camp. It's reopened 20 plus years after a young local lad had drowned, and then the following year 2 counsellors murdered. Someone was not happy about the camp reopening, and cue classic stalker slash slasher, lots of slashes there, action. Obviously another one with it's horror bad guy icon Jason Voorhees introduces to there. The twist at the end obviously being, in this one at least, it's not Jason that's killed everyone, it's his mum, but then Jason comes flying out of the water at the end and pulls someone into the lake from the I mean it played off the riffs that Halloween that had come out before it set up, and fed off the slasher tropes that Halloween set up. I mean the director pretty much admitted as such on it, which is why it's only an honourable mention. But I do like the film. If nothing else, than to it gives us Kevin Bacon getting hacked and slashed a bit, so it's always good. Right, so into my top 5. At 5, I mean this was tough. I'm not going to lie to you, this was tough, especially putting this one so low on number 5 for me. It's Airplane. To this day, in my opinion, this remains the epitome of a spoof movie. I don't think it's been bettered at all. Hot Shots Part 2 came close. Mel Brooks really with Men in Tights has got there, but for me, for the amount of gags and not only visual but lines on there, it's the epitome of it. It's one of my favourite films, period. It's my second favourite comedy of all times. The story, as much as it is of a war veteran pilot who's now afraid to fly, having to land a passenger jet after the entire crew becomes sick. The plot is just an excuse to jump from comic set piece to comic set piece, whether it's 80s / 70s, basketball star Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, his Roger Murdoch, Peter Graves is Captain Clarence Over, and Frank Ashmore's Victor Basta, the 3 flight crew. The whole scene of the Rogers, Overs and Vectors getting mixed up is we have clearance, Clarence. Roger, what's our Victor? It's in the delivery. I've not got it. It's Leslie Nielsen. This is Dr. Rumack asking Robert Hayes, who's the star, as it would be Ted Stryker, can you fly this plane and land it? This is surely you can't be serious. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. And that's just 2 of the literally dozens of hilarious quotes on this film. Absolutely amazing in the way that, I mean, the cast at the time, Leslie Nielsen, he's known now as obviously through Naked Gun and the Airplane film, as being this comic genius. At the time, he wasn't a comedian. He was a straight-laced actor. You've got Lloyd Bridges, Peter Graves, Robert Stack. They were all serious actors who were not known as comedians. But my God, they absolutely pull it off, an absolute treat. I mean, Lloyd Bridges, as he's there, and I've picked a fine gate to give up smoking as he's there, and all this, and then I've picked a fine gate to stop sniffing glue, and what do you make of this weather report? Oh, I can make a lovely hat or a pterodactyl. Yeah, I love the film. I could almost do one on its own just about this, but I won't. That's number 5. Okay, number 5. We've got 4 more to go. So in at 4, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. It's quite possibly the best of a notoriously patchy quality Stephen King adaptations. Okay, yes, there's Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, which are probably better than this, but it's one of the best. It's quite possibly one of the best. Obviously, Jack Nicholson takes his as Jack Torrance, takes his family, and they're taken on as winter caretakers of the Overlook Hotel. The hotel is haunted, and Jack goes slowly mad, taking it out on his family. The film is still full of pop culture references, resonating today, from the Here's Johnny scene, that required 3 days and 60 doors to try and get right. The prop crew made flimsy doors to make it easy to hit with an axe and get through, not realising that Jack Nicholson had actually had training as a fireman and knew how to put an axe through a door, and he just obliterated the door. So they had to make stronger doors to make sure that it come right. But yeah, 3 days and 60 doors before they got the scene right in there. There's the creepy twins that turn up, the frozen finale in it. I mean, that snowy maze at the end there took 900 tons of salt and crushed styrofoam to put right, to get right with it. The film has left its fingerprints on films, and from then onward, and films that are not also horror films, but also so thematically different. It's unbelievable. The carpet pattern in the hotel is copied or is in the landing of Sid's house in Toy Story. It's absolutely pattern copy, or copied pattern, whichever way. I mean, that's a kids' film, and you're directly referencing a psychological haunted house horror film. Simpsons did a whole thing of ripping on The Shining, and even this year, obviously Steven Spielberg in Ready Player One, the film adaptation, the Overlook Hotel plays a big part. Spoiler alert! The Overlook Hotel plays an important section in the film adaptation of this. Nicholson at the time when he was there, apparently it was such hard work. Stanley Kubrick was such a perfectionist on there. He would walk into his home when he was living in London at the time as it was being filmed, and would just collapse straight into bed and be out like a light. Took a lot on there. Shirley Duvall did not have a good time there. I mean, Nicholson and Duvall have had a lot of aggro before, saying Kubrick got a lot of credit for it, and the actors and Stephen King didn't get enough credit for the work that they put in. Everything seemed to be, Kubrick's done a great job here, rather than Stephen King's work here is not too bad, or Jack Nicholson or Shelley Duvall, and yeah, I mean, the young kid on there, obviously, I can't remember his name for the life of me now, but because he was so young, he didn't actually know he was filming a horror film. His scenes were always completely separate from anything that was horror, and he just thought he was filming a drama of some sort. But yeah, it's another one that it holds up. It's creepy, and it's got some seriously. It's still in the public consciousness again, 38 years later. Okay, on to number 3. To say that Superman 2 had a troubled production would be an understatement. I think it's safe to say. The original director, Richard Donner, was fired by the producers, despite having filmed enough footage, as it happens, to have released the complete film. He was replaced by Richard Lester, who was is US born but living in England, and had never even heard of Superman. Not read a comic book, didn't know what he was getting into. The majority of the film was reshot. It was released in Europe in 1980, but the US in 81, which is why it's in this list this year. I live in Europe, it's on my list in 1980. It obviously tells the story of 3 Kryptonian criminals accidentally released from their Phantom Zone prison. Now in Donner's cut, they were released by the nuke that Supes throws into space at the end of Superman 1. In the Lester cut, this was swapped out, and it's a bomb that's set on the Eiffel Tower that Superman flies in and grabs and throws into space that breaks their glass cell from the Phantom Zone. Obviously then this releases Zod, played by an amazing Terrence Stamp, absolutely chewing the scenery left, right and centre in this. And then Sarah Douglas and Jack O'Halloran as Ursa Non arrive first on the moon, and come across the Russian cosmonaut there, and then back onto Earth. They arrive on Earth and cause utter mayhem. All the while that Clark Kent and Margot Kidder, the dearly departed, God bless her, she was 69, is no aid to be taken. But yeah, Lois Lane and Clark Kent are bumping Super Uglies in the Fortress of Solitude while this is going on, so they know nothing about it. Yeah, finally, it's not the fact that he's just got a pair of glasses on that makes him Superman, the Clark Kent Superman thing. No, it's because he trips over and burns his hand, but doesn't burn his hand. That's what makes him Superman, is it? Okay, Lois, if you say so, love. Yeah, so while they're all there going on, Superman flies out to get some dinner, and he sees in the news that this is all kicking off. He loses his powers. This is where my memory tricks. Does he lose his powers so he can be with Lois? Or does he lose his powers to save them because he said so? I can't remember. I know he goes in there, gets into a fight at a burger shop with some bully in there because he doesn't realise he's not used to being human, so he gets the ass handed to him. Yeah, I mean the final showdown back in the Fortress of Solitude again. I mean, it introduces some never before or even since powers for Superman, including picture perfect hologram projection that they can just jump it, pass through, and fall down to a never-ending crevasse into the centre of the Earth. An expanding Super S of a plastic frisbee from his costume. Again, never seen before or since. Yeah, I mean, this is widely acknowledged as the best in the franchise. It's still eminently watchable. As much as I enjoy Man of Steel, and I really do like Man of Steel, and that portrayal of Zod and Urso was brilliantly brought up to date. Superman 2 stands alone as it's the Superman series' empire in more ways than one. The fact that both of them are the second episode on there, it's still eminently watchable. Right, okay. Sorry, quick drink. This brings us on to number 2. Yeah, you know it's not going to be Empire. This is Martin Scorsese's biographical masterpiece of Jake LaMotta, Raging Bull. Won 2 Oscars, De Niro for Best Leading Actor and also for Best Editing, and was nominated for another 6. Obviously tells the story of Jake LaMotta and his self-destructive ways, his temper, that while it fuels how he is in the ring, it absolutely tears his personal life apart. I mean, when the real life Jake LaMotta saw the film, he turned to his wife and asked if he was that bad. His wife said, "No, you were worse." De Niro took the role incredibly seriously. He went on a pretty serious training regime, including actually entering 3 Brooklyn boxing matches. He won 2 out of 3, so he's got a winning percentage on boxing. And in fact, during there's rumoured to be over 1,000 sparring rounds that De Niro and LaMotta had. And during those, Jake LaMotta actually stated that De Niro had what it took to be an actual contender in the boxing ring if he ever went that way. Obviously didn't, but there's obviously a reunion and the two together of Joe Pesci and De Niro firing off each other so well. Got a little bit carried away at some point when the two of them were sparring. De Niro actually broke a couple of Joe Pesci's ribs. There's one point where they're actually seriously punching each other in there, where they were fighting, and it was full on punching. It wasn't pretend. Um, there were and are many reasons why the film was in black and white, with the exception of the title screen on there. Raging Bull was in red. Everything else is black and white. They wanted to differentiate between Raging Bull and Rocky. Obviously, thematically the same. They're both boxing films. Whereas Raging Bull is obviously it's a more grounded and it's a more downbeat affair, rather than Rocky's rags to riches rise. Raging Bull's obviously got the fall of La Motta. So they need to separate that apart. The main one is in La Motta's book that this is all based around. There's the line in there. So sometimes when I think back, I feel like I'm watching an old black and white movie of myself. Scorsese saw this line in there, and it just struck home, and that was it. That was where the black and white part came from with it. Yeah, another one that stood the test of time so well, and is number 2 in my top 5 1980s films. Which brings us to number 1. Numero uno, The Top Dog. It was the highest grossing film of 1980 in the States, and it will not be a surprise to anybody who actually knows me. It is the almost universally accepted as best Star Wars film to date, the second one made and the 5th in the saga, Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Ta-da! No one's surprised. Obviously, whilst obviously it continues the story of Luke, Leia and Han, I seriously doubt that anyone listening to this podcast needs the plot to be explained. Okay, directed by Irving Kershner and written by Lawrence Kasdan, this expands perfectly the world introduced in A New Hope. It shows us an ice planet, space slugs, a perpetual swamp planet, and floating cities. It gives us a lovable Muppet, and the best part of a holiday special, a class war love story, and even possible incest. Yeah. All capped off with a killer twist that changed everything that you thought about the previous 2 films. George Lucas originally confirmed that although he's a good kick-ass storyteller, he's not that good of a filmmaker, by stating that this was the worst Star Wars film and apologised for its existence. Yeah, okay, George. You just make the story, leave it to someone else to make. Okay? This obviously had very, very little of the 6 films that he had fingers in pies with, if that makes sense, or the Lucas films that wasn't the non-Disney Star Wars films. Basically what I'm trying to say. This is the one that he had the least input in, and I think it shows by the fact that it's accepted as being the best. Yeah. Everybody knows the stories of it. I love Yoda. Yoda in there. I mean, how on earth can you get such a, for essentially a Muppet? They're raising the whole set up, so Frank Oz can be underneath operating it, and Irving Kershner is getting such a fantastic emotional response to this puppet that he's giving directions to the puppet rather than Frank Oz, and Frank Oz is continuously having to remind him, I'm down here, it's not him, it's me. Mark Hamill had to have an earpiece in so he could hear Frank Oz's telling the lines, so he could marry up to what's being said right. It's not, as is sort of urban legend, the Wampa scene was not put in to hide facial scars on Mark Hamill after he had a traffic accident. Although he did have a traffic accident, by the time the filming was made, there was hardly anything shown, so he didn't need that whole smash bit. Although that did lead to the Bacta tank, which led to him being in recovery, which led to the kiss by his sister. So is that a good thing or not? Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, that's it. That's my top 5 1980s films. I'm done. Okay, please remember, guys, we are on Podbean. Please follow the feed, rate, review, leave your comments on there by all means. We're also on iTunes. Okay, again, click the subscribe button. It will go straight onto your phone, iPad, Mac, whatever it is that you're using for it. Again, rate, review, share, tell someone about this podcast. You guys have been great at following the Facebook posts. Let's get some more listeners for me, please. Okay, well, you're in a car, plug it into the Bluetooth, even if it's not your car. Okay, you're DJ, your passenger seat, you're in the DJ spot, drop this into the Bluetooth, play it while you're driving somewhere. Okay, tell somebody else about it. If everybody, I mean, there's 31 people like the Facebook page. I think this is 20th episode. I've done 550 something downloads I've had of my podcast, and only some of those are me. Okay, some of them's my wife as well, but still, she's one of the people that's on it, so she's allowed to listen to her own episode. Yeah, right. Okay. We are on Twitter and at @thatmadeyour. Get involved, comment on the post. Let me know what your favourite 80s films are. We have Facebook page, as I mentioned before. It's That Made Your List. From there you'll have a pinned post where the top 20 not the top 20, the pinned post of the 20 questions asked during the main podcast one with the interview section of the podcast. All the old episodes are up on there, and then on each week it'll come through, and I'll say obviously this week and next week I'm doing 1981. I've got my list. What's your favourite film? As I did this week, let me know what your favourite film is. Okay. You can contact the podcast on email if you want to be a guest on the main show. That's at thatmadeyourlist@outlook.com. And I think we're done. Oh no, real quickly, right at the very end here, I'd like to thank Shay Watson, the Silver Fox himself, and his band Princip for kindly donating the first 10 seconds of one of their songs called Merry Go Round as the intro to the podcast. And that's on Apple Music, and it's available on YouTube and all places where you can get music from. Again, really, really good. I really appreciate Shay for donating that music. Right, that's it. I'm done. My name's Dave Goodger. This has been That Made Your List.